Standing on the verge of getting it on, beyond the twilight zone, further than the outer limits, deep, deeper than deep in the black hole. Free your mind and your ass will follow, because once you've passed the point of no return, you are caught in the cosmic slop.
What it do? This is your brother Bishop of Bishop Zone TV. In today's episode, I'm gonna be talking about a blast from the past. I gotta talk about this anthology that was very short-lived that came out in the 90s on HBO called Cosmic Slop. Yes, Cosmic Slop, which was named after a Funkadelic album, was a 3-part anthology that resembled The Twilight Zone and other horror science fiction anthologies that came out before them. Now, this particular anthology was very special because it was a black-centric, Afro-futuristic, if you will, anthology, which came out again, like I said, in the 90s. Now, I'm going to be talking about one particular episode, which I believe was the premiere episode of, again, this short-lived anthology. They only had 3 episodes, by the way. So when I say short-lived, I mean very short-lived. But this particular episode that I'm going to be talking about today is called Space Traders. Now, if you were an 80s baby and 90s kid, you might have seen this episode. If you haven't, you're in for a treat. I promise you. I'll put the link in the description below. But let's get right into it. Now, Space Traders was directed by Reginald Hudlin, which, if you know who Reginald Hudlin is, he was responsible for House Party and a plethora of other dope films and production credits and what have you. Also, Space Traders was based off a story written by Derrick Bell, who happens to be a Harvard law professor, also coined as the father of critical race theory. Yes, Derrick Bell created Space Traders, which they turned into this short story that premiered on Cosmic Slop. Now let's break down the synopsis of Space Traders. So on January 1st, 2000, extraterrestrials arrive on Earth and offer the United States gold, safe nuclear power, and other technological advances in exchange for all of its black citizens. Yes, we will give you all of this for these Negroes here in America. Yeah, it went there, y'all. And they needed a decision on January 17th, which happens to fall on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Yes, MLK Day.
I'm the Vice President.
Well, we are space traders bearing exquisite gifts that will restore your nation to its former glory. Nearly limitless quantities of gold and precious metals that will instantly erase your deficit. Machines that will renew your rivers and your air. Cold fusion technology for a safe, cheap, and inexhaustible source of energy. All we ask in return is the delivery to our vessels. 5 days from now, every child, woman, and man in your nation with at least 2,500 milligrams of melanin in their skin per square centimeter.
What the hell is melanin?
Put more simply, in trade for solving all your most pressing domestic catastrophes, we are asking for every person in your country that you would classify as black.
Are you kidding?
No, we are not.
Our story follows Gleason Golightly, played by Robert Guillaume, who is our main character, is a prominent black conservative who was summoned to participate in the cabinet's decision or discussion of the proposed trade. Now, Golightly is portrayed in this episode as a Uncle Tom type character. And he's against the trade for black people to be sent to outer space.
Energy for every American? Sounds like a hell of a re-election platform. Sam, I have to go on record as saying this is crazy. But...
But what?
Well, welfare rolls would be cut 40%. Food stamps, Medicare, drug abuse programs slashed.
May I add something, Mr. President? You know, if I could guarantee the prosperity of this great country by giving life or taking off of those space traders, I'd do so without a moment's hesitation.
You know, the Secretary's courage is not unlike that American men and women have exhibited when called to military service. Well, some go more willingly than others, but almost all go with the knowledge that they might never come back.
I don't believe what I'm hearing. Doesn't anybody see a downside to this?
You know, Casper's absolutely right. The guilt that many whites would feel for sending the blacks away could take a severe psychological toll, with medical costs possibly reaching astronomical levels.
This is madness. Our military services would be decimated, depleted of 30% of our manpower.
But with unlimited energy, think of the weapons you could create.
Mr. President, Sam, you were elected by the slimmest of margins. Your African-American vote was key.
I don't expect them to be thrilled, but how can I put this delicately? Their future electoral clout is going to be severely limited.
And Casper, let's be honest. Do you really think the aliens will treat them worse than we have?
No, the real issue here is spin control. The decision has to be the will of the people and not the administration policy.
How about a national referendum? Have MCI fire up a couple of those yes and no 900 numbers.
I'll be damned. We're on to something here. Professor Golightly, you look like you want to say something.
Gentlemen. Gentlemen, gentlemen. As you know, Mr. President, I have been a lifelong card-carrying Republican. I feel I was instrumental in your moderate wing wresting control of the party from religious extremists. I have often supported this administration's repeal of affirmative action legislation, not protested its decreasing handouts to the poor. And in helping you undermine these policies, I realized that your reasons for doing so differed from mine. And yet I was always a good soldier for the party. I sincerely believed, and still believe, that black people need to learn how to stand on their own 2 feet without the crutches of governmental legislation. But I'm afraid I must protest in the strongest terms possible what I've heard in this room today. What is being proposed cannot be passed off euphemistically as selective service. At its best, it is group banishment. At its worst, it is utter and complete extermination.
Oh, Professor, that's ridiculous.
But the completely white cabinet discounts his moral objections because they believe the trade will benefit the United States.
Yes, sir. And I'm taking all my scissors with me, too. Because there's no telling what kind of electricity them aliens are going to have on them ships. Because you know us black folks, we don't like arriving nowhere on nappy-headed.
So you really think they're going to send us away, huh?
And I told you the one about the American dream?
No.
That's what all the niggas swimming back to Africa, with a Jew under each arm.
You're outrageous. But you know, Piggy, we could fight back. Like the Palestinians. With rocks and guns.
Nigga, please.
So there's other scenes in the film where you see a discussion had about prominent entrepreneurs, prominent corporations who have exploited black consumers, you know, discussing the possibility of, well, maybe we do need to, you know, go against this trade because we rely too much on black consumerism.
I come from a very obvious self-interest. Leland, why don't you tell the rest of the boys how this trade would affect your distilleries?
Blacks drink 33% of my hard liquor. 48% of my cognac alone. Who's going to take up that slack?
Why, it'll decimate athletic shoe sales.
Cool and Newport cigarettes.
Pork. 15% of our best consumers gone. Like that.
And we at the oil companies employ over 12 million people worldwide. Now, the alien, inexhaustible energy source will wipe us out overnight.
Furthermore, the blacks are all gone. How long do you think poor whites will stand being at the very bottom of the barrel? We'll have a revolution before the year's out.
We've got to tell those little green men to go back where they came from.
So throughout the episode, Go Lightly attends a meeting of black community members. He starts suggesting that, hey man, black people, we need to pretend that we're getting the great end of this bargain. You know, we're getting the better end of this. So if we convince these white people that we're getting the best deal out of the situation, then maybe they might pull back on the trade and keep us here on Earth. Stalling tactics.
Oh, sit down, Tom.
I am well aware of how I am perceived, but now is not the time for our petty squabbling. Now, this came to me this morning. In order to ensure victory, we must stop resisting the offer and urge the country to accept the trader's proposition. The major motivation for racism in this country is the deeply held belief that black people should not have anything that white people don't. Not only do whites insist on better jobs, higher incomes, better neighborhoods, better schools, but they leap to gobble up our language, our dress, our music, and our dance. Therefore, I propose that from now until the polls open this evening, we circulate the rumor that the aliens have arranged for our transport to the wealthiest and most beautiful utopia in the known universe. White folks will go ape, wondering what we will encounter in this new land. They will gnash their teeth. They will even argue that to limit the space traders' offer to blacks is an unconstitutional discrimination against whites.
I cannot stand here any longer and be influenced by a man who has dedicated his entire life to sabotaging his own people. Now is not the time for trickery and tomfoolery. My people were brought here involuntarily, and involuntarily is the only way they're gonna take me out.
So, towards the end of the episode, Go Lightly's plans fail from each group. Every plan that he came up with fails. So, at this point, Go Lightly tries to make a deal. So, towards the end of the episode, there has been a national referendum that is held, and the trade is approved by, of course, the predominantly white society.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, with just 6% of the vote tallied, we project that the referendum will pass by a comfortable margin. Oh, God. What? Collection centers will be set up tomorrow morning by the National Guard. The aliens say that they will allow only one piece of carry-on luggage per person. Oh, me. This is Bernard Shields. Goodbye.
On January 17th, the black population of the United States, including Mr. Golightly, the Uncle Tom himself, are rounded up and sent on a beach to their destination, which they end up just floating into these extraterrestrials, these UFOs, ships, and we never hear the end of what happened to black Americans. There you have it. That was Space Traders. Man, I thought this was a brilliant take on America's discourse with racial equality and just what was going on in the 90s at the time. I mean, you got to understand, this is the 90s. This is fresh off the Rodney King riots, or I'm sorry, the rebellion, the Rodney King rebellions, and just we had the hip hop at the time was still kind of, even though we was getting away from the political, unapologetic, rebellious hip hop phase and going into the gangster rap phase, it was still kind of fresh on everybody's minds. This is around the same time you've seen Louis Farrakhan, Khalid Muhammad, Sister Soldier regularly on talk shows in mainstream society. So this was and also I think Clinton was the president around this time, but this was also coming off the Reagan era. So, because as you see, Reagan was the spokesperson for the extraterrestrials. So, man, I thought this was a pretty dope short that stuck with me as a child. Like I said, I remember seeing it with my father, who, again, my father, he put me on to pretty much a lot of my ideologies that I believe in to this day. I mean, like I said, we were big science fiction fans. Not only science fiction fans, but very conscious, very pro-black, Pan-Africanist at the time, still is. And so watching that with him, that was just like, especially in 1994, you gotta understand, this is before Jordan Peele. This was before a lot of images in media now where you see more black science fiction or science fiction and horror films and TV series that are centered around black people. Whereas even in the 90s, you were just starting to see it. This was even before Tales from the Hood, which came out a year later. So, man, you can search the internet for a full episode. I'll provide a link below for the full episode. But, man, check it out. Cosmic Slop. So, like I said, it was very, very short-lived. Only 3 stories. And I only remember this one. Because, like I said, the concept was so deep and so, like, man, wow. They really went there. That it just always stuck with me. So, yeah, I appreciate all the love that I'm getting. I appreciate all the disdain that I'm getting. Continue coming to my channel with those likes and subscriptions. And until next time, holla.